Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. Today we are hosting, Milestone is hosting our Women in Mass Tort Administration webinar. And my name is Laura Fetto. I'm the Director of Settlement Planning here at Milestone Consulting. And I just wanted to introduce some of our panelists who have taken the time out of their day to join us and speak to this topic and also celebrate Women's History Month. So first we have Francesca Castanola. She is the Senior Managing Director of Western Alliance Bank's Settlement Services National Specialty Banking Group. She's a 30-year banking veteran, and she was one of the founding officers of the bank's San Diego division. She and her team also host the annual Class Action Law Forum, and that is a forum that releases an annual research report every year. So we're really appreciative of you joining us, Francesca. Looking forward to hearing from you on the panel. And we also have Milestone CEO here with us, Amy Fogel. Amy's been with Milestone a little bit over 2 years now, and she has an extensive background in finance, specifically wealth management, and Amy's role as CEO basically encompasses all aspects of client-facing financial planning for the firm, and she also conducts all of our operations and processes day to day. We also have Robin Griffin, who will be joining us shortly. She's having some technical difficulties, but she is the managing director for the national settlement team at Huntington National Bank. And Robin helped lead the launch of the bank's West Coast office back in 2014. She's also the head of the business development portion of her team, and she served in multiple leadership roles across the country as well. So again, thanks everybody for joining us. We're looking forward to a conversational panel about QSF administration and women in the space in leadership roles, and anything that you might have to add at the end or any questions, we'll definitely be opening it up after a few questions for all of our panelists. So we're hoping that Robin can join us shortly, but to start off, Francesca, as far as, you have so much experience as a 30-year veteran in the space. What would you say just overall your experience has been as a woman in the finance industry?
Thanks, Laura. And first, I want to say thank you to Milestone for inviting me to participate today. This is a great forum amongst, such great women and colleagues. And anytime I have the opportunity to participate and speak on a panel that is about women in the industry, I am all for it. It is no secret that I think both in the finance industry and the legal industry, it has always been a male-dominated industry. And, I think I've been really fortunate. I've seen a lot over the last 30 years, and I've definitely seen a shift for the better. Used to be, even 10 years ago, I was the only woman in the room, and I'm starting to see that change. I think that, women are finally being taken seriously in these industries. We work really hard to get there. I have had the good fortune of having very good male mentors over the course of my career who never really looked at gender or thought of me any differently than my male colleagues, but I understand that that's rare. And just because I had that opportunity, not everyone does. A good example of this, I was speaking on a panel not too long ago when someone asked me, who has been your greatest female mentor? And I paused. I was like taken off guard, taken aback. I really had to think about it. And I just fessed up and I said, you know what? I've never had one. They've all been guys. And if you look at the tenure of my career, I think that makes sense. And it was at that moment that, it really dawned upon me how important it is for me to be that female mentor to the more junior women on my team and across the industry.
Yeah,
that's a really good takeaway too, is having a question posed to you and to really take a step back and be like, wow, this industry has always been so male dominated that I can't even think of someone who led the path or even like carved the pathway for you. So that's a really interesting takeaway, Francesca.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's a great takeaway, but I'm saying that, now there are enough of us in senior positions where maybe that doesn't have to be the case anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a good feeling.
The point of change.
Yes.
And Amy, given, all of your financial background as well, I guess, this could be a question for both of you. I know, especially Francesca, with you being so heavily, into that leadership role within your space right now. Of course, it seems as though the legal industry has definitely empowered women so much more in recent years, and there's such a powerhouse collection of women in that area. Do you think that there's a chance that the financial industry will catch up, or do you think they're catching up currently as far as having women in those types of higher up roles and giving them more of a voice?
Sure. Yeah, I think that the financial industry is catching up. We're seeing more and more women in executive roles. I also think that it's something that most financial institutions are very mindful of, is diversity in general and taking a look at executive management and executive roles and making sure that not only women, but just that there is good diversity around the table. And when I reflect on this, there are differences just in the way that women think and men think, and I'm not saying that one is good or right versus the other, but if you want true diversity of thought, it's nice to have that balance.
Certainly.
I would definitely agree. I think so. In my background, I come from financial services into the legal industry. So in financial services, I was always the only woman at a conference, and you look around in a sea of men, and it's just a different world. And yes, that was probably 15 years ago. But I do think the financial industry has been slower to change and slower to develop when you look at the amount of advisors that are women, or the amount of institutional asset managers that are women. Like, that's slowly changing. But to me, has been so interesting is coming into the financial services within the legal industry, and seeing the empowerment of women, to see the women in the plaintiff trial bar all coming together, supporting each other, patting each other on the back, a job well done when a settlement comes through, or significant information comes out. I think that has been so inspiring to me, and really a key driver on the change maybe that happened in the legal industry a little bit sooner than what we've seen in the financial side of things.
Yeah, we've done a lot of research about this, and read a lot on the topic, specifically in finance. And McKinsey put out a good study a few years ago um, about the broken rung, and really where women fall off in finance, and where they don't make the leap to that next step. And it seems like women get siloed into operations positions instead of going the sales track or the business track. And so I think, really acknowledging, where in your organization women start to fall off, and having good mentorship programs and letting them know about the opportunities, and, just having someone good that is above them to say, hey, have you ever thought of trying this? One of the things that I think we suffer from as women, as we are our toughest critics. And, that's one of the biggest differences between women and men is, they say if a woman has 9 qualifications out of 10 for a job description, they won't apply. Mm-hmm. But if a man has 2, they will. And so just really encouraging and showing the confidence in the women that you work with that, yeah, you can do this. I think you'd be great at it.
Yeah, and I would say too, even taking that a step further, is having the path laid out for them, and empowering them to continue on their trajectory or their career. But also, the one thing that we found here at Milestone is giving that ability to be parents or to have young kids while creating your career too is really important, and having that flexibility in your job, whether it's having some days working remote or knowing that you're going to be a little bit late to work because your child has XYZ going on, just giving someone flexibility so that they give you back the best work that they can possibly give to the organization. And I think that push-pull has been really a great driver here at Milestone. And I think just the whole financial industry generally has gone through such a shift just with COVID alone, being able to work at home, being able to create a little bit more of your own schedule so that you can give that motivation back and you can drive your role forward within any organization.
That's
I don't know
such
how
a
it's
good
been in
point.
the banking industry,
Mhm.
specifically, Francesca.
Yeah, you know what, Amy, that's such a good point. You bring up something that so resonates with me, because if I look back at my career, I had one leader in particular. I worked for him for a number of years, and he would just say, I know you've got a family, do whatever you need to do, but just get your job done. And
Mhm.
if I look at my other female counterparts that maybe didn't have that same opportunity, that they had to sit at a desk from 9 to 5 every day, as a woman, you're forced to make choices that men sometimes don't have to even think about. So, how do I get my son or daughter to soccer practice, or how do I get them to the doctor's office? Things like that. And I think really great leaders understand that you need to be able to fit it all in. And if you're, willing to work hard to get your job done, the other stuff can fall into place too. And you really can have it all.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think that dynamic of feeling like you want it all to work out sometimes is the pressure that we put on ourselves. Like I want to be the perfect everything. But really, when you take that large step back and you have the flexibility and the clarity in your mind to say, I can focus on my family right now, but now I can focus on my job. I think that really makes a big difference to that growth potential and to not get stuck in the operations or not get stuck in a career that maybe isn't the best suited for you, or maybe you're not willing to take that leap. But if you feel like you can do more, then the flexibility, I think, really enables that.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with all of that. I mean, I could go on and on on that topic. Flexibility is key. There's two quotes that come to mind. One is, one of my colleagues, she says there's no such thing as balance. Everybody is looking for this work-life balance. Just forget about that. It just is. And you just figure it out. And sometimes you're going to be more heavy on the work side, and sometimes you're going to be more heavy on the family side. And another quote that I always try to remember when I'm being extra hard on myself is that women can have it all, but nobody said that it had to be at the same time. And that's
Yeah,
Eleanor Roosevelt. And that one really keeps me grounded.
yeah.
Yeah,
No, that's a good reminder.
it definitely is. And so being, in both the legal and financial spaces, we're working with female trial attorneys who really know all of that, probably, better than almost any other profession, working long hours and nonstop, endless days preparing for trial amongst everything else going on. So, Francesca, do you think that you have different inquiries coming from female trial attorneys that are coming to you to work with the bank as opposed to male trial attorneys that might be reaching out for certain things they need?
Yeah, to be honest, so I know this was one of the prompts that we were going to talk about today. And this one I had to think about. It's really actually hard to describe in words, but I think with my female clients, I just connect on a different level, especially those that are working moms. They're either single moms, which I was for a long time, or their husbands also have really busy jobs and there's children involved. There's just kind of this understanding that it's unspoken, you just connect about it. I'll say also too, if I think about it, there's just those certain things that make women different than men. And so when I'm speaking with my women clients, oftentimes I expect them to be more detail oriented. I expect them to be needing 20 things at one time because they're multitasking and they have that expectation of me. And sometimes that's just different with men.
Mhm. Yeah, and looking a little bit more specifically at the particular work that we do and that our teams do, what would you say just overall, men and women, what are some of the common inquiries from trial attorneys that you receive?
I mean, I would say to that degree, Laura, I don't think that it really differs. The caliber of the clients that we work with when they're coming to us about banking and QSFs and best practices or escrow related type work, I would say that the technical questions tend to be the same because they're all really high quality, high caliber attorneys that we're working with.
It's just
Yeah.
the input that's different. It's how they get to the same point, right? I think men and women are so different in how we get there. I would say, like, on our side, from a Milestone perspective, one of the differences that I think is interesting is typically when we do fee deferrals for attorneys, we have seen a lot of men that will get to the point where they are able to do a fee deferral, or they understand a fee deferral, or it makes sense for their personal lives. But now we've seen much more women coming to us ready to do a fee deferral with all of their ducks in the row, understanding what their periodic payment is going to look like. So it's really an interesting dynamic between men and women, just because, to your point, when women come to us, they are organized generally and have everything laid out for Laura. So here's what I want to do. Here's what I need to do with my money. And it's just it's a different scenario with men and women and how they come to the table for those deferrals.
Which brings a good question to my mind, Laura. Are you seeing more and more requests from female attorneys? Like, as we look at how the industry is changing and more women being appointed to leadership positions, how has that affected you all?
Definitely. I would say significantly, especially in the last few years. I've only been at Milestone for about 4 years now, but even from my very first day until now, just the amount of women that are receiving significantly larger fees has increased exponentially. I mean, it's pretty astounding how you see women who are competing for that, that large attorney fee on those big cases, and they, as Amy mentioned, they come to us for deferral options, and it's something that they want to put into place for their financial future. That's definitely grown, and it's pretty awesome to see, actually, women who are right there as far as the pay grade goes, and just being able to do the same thing as men and earning the same as men.
Yeah, it's incredible. It is great to see.
Yeah. And so, Francesca, related to QSF administration specifically, what are some considerations, any trial attorney that comes to you, what are things as far as best practices that you share with them, taking into account banking and selecting an administrator, things like that?
Sure. What I like to say is, a bank is a bank is a bank, but not every bank is for every industry. We're one of the few banks that has a division dedicated to settlement administration and working, with lawyers and claims administrators, settlement administrators. You want to be with a bank that understands what a QSF is, first of all. Most banks don't, it's not even on their radar. And then you want to be working with someone that really understands the space. I've been doing it for 30 years, and there are a lot of nuances that can go into banking a qualified settlement fund. There's, definitely the risk return factor and making sure that you're protecting the funds and that you are looking out for the class and getting the best return with the most, least aggressive investment out there. And as far as the attorneys go, they're busy. So to know someone that they can, pick up, even call on their cell phone, hey, I'm filing this settlement agreement tomorrow. Can you take a look at this section, or can you get me an escrow agreement? I think that, time is money, and that's really important. I also think that you want to be working with someone that can speak to the courts if necessary. There have been a number of times where we've been asked to either appear or write letters, and you want to make sure that you're speaking with someone that's well versed, and can help back you up.
Yeah. And Amy, I know that as far as best practices go, we were discussing the other day just how important it can be to have that type of focus on every aspect of QSF administration, and how important it can be to separate some of those tasks out so that there's 100% focus on each part of all of the movement that comes along with administration.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the main factors, and it kind of goes back to what Francesca said, is what we do is educating the trial attorney on utilizing a qualified settlement fund and why it's beneficial to every settlement to go through a qualified settlement fund. So I think there's still some of that out there, not in the class or maybe the mass tort space, but just generally with all the attorneys we talk to. So utilizing a qualified settlement fund is really step number one. But what Laura is speaking to is really the idea of the co-administration. So having fiduciary oversight over the whole process so that there's not just one individual that's doing the whole process with liens and distribution. So having that keen oversight to ensure that distributions are happening for the plaintiff, the correct amount is going out the door, is really important to us here at Milestone. I'm sure Francesca could speak to that from the banking side as well, being the custodian of the assets and then having distributions taking place. What are your thoughts on that piece, Francesca?
You know, you make a really good point there, Amy. I think that partnership between all the parties is super important. Having that level of expertise to be able to work with your partners in the right way, and make sure that the funds get into the hand of the plaintiff in the cleanest, easiest, most simple way possible. That includes considering, like, what's the demographic of those plaintiffs. How do you get a payment out to an unbanked person? What are some different payment options? Gone are the days of just mailing a check. And so working with folks like you at Milestone or lien resolution companies, and really just being in contact every step of the process. And then, I often say we have the most important piece at the end, because that's making sure that people get their money, and a responsibility we take very seriously. So we're always looking at, do we have the right technology? Do we have the best top of class service? Are we able to work with our partners in such a way so that if we get a call from a plaintiff, we know, who to direct them to, and that type of thing.
And Francesca, you sparked something when you mentioned, getting a payment out to a client who perhaps doesn't have a bank account themselves. I think that sometimes women, get knocked for being emotional, or, they might have this other aspect to their mind or their frame of thought that isn't just solely business focused or, mathematical. But don't you think having women on an administration team like that, knowing that someone might not have a bank account and figuring out how to problem solve so that they can get their settlement money, that they likely need to live on, or is a huge part of their life, having women on a team is something that is so important, because we can look at things in a different way, and it might be emotional or it might be a little bit feelings driven, but that's also meaningful when it comes to helping your clients and working, to get people what they need.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with that more, Laura. And I think that it takes sometimes a certain tact. And I'm not saying that our male colleagues don't have that tact, but what I do know is sometimes it's more comfortable for a woman to speak with another woman, especially when you're in a situation where you need that money to live on. There's a bit of desperation that goes along with it. And just to be able to connect as females to say, don't worry, I got you. The money's coming. We'll figure this out. Sometimes there's just some comfort that comes along with that.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Just that empathetic approach that I think women generally have when it comes to speaking with other women or other people generally. I think women tend to lead with that. when they're talking. So I think just the plaintiff relationship, just sometimes it just comes a little bit easier to a woman, just because you can relate or take that step back or use your empathy in a way that really helps secure, their comfort on the other side.
Yeah,
Agreed.
and that's something that, so many trial attorneys appreciate too, especially women trial attorneys, knowing that there is that empathetic side to, qualified settlement fund administration or whatever else it may be on the banking or finance side, because they do want to know that clients are taken care of, beyond when their time with that client ends necessarily. And so I think we were going to open it up for some questions at this point, see if any of our viewers and listeners wanted to ask anything of the panel or add anything. So I'm not sure if anyone wants to add in a question.
Maybe while we're waiting for some questions to come in, I'll just maybe make one other comment.
Sure.
That women empowered organizations, it must start at the top, and it must be a mindful thing. It must be purposeful. It doesn't happen by accident. It doesn't happen without hard work. And I think that that's true when it comes to diversity in general. All the studies show that having a diverse workforce leads to a more highly functioning, better organization, more highly profitable. And so for the listeners out there, I would encourage you that if you don't have a diversity program within your organization, that you recommend starting one. And that has to start at the top with your executive leadership, ensuring that they're on board and really weaving that into the culture of your organization and who you are, and resonating and cascading that down to everyone within the organization. I think that when things like that happen, junior women feel empowered. They feel that the company is behind me, they understand my circumstance, and they want to see me grow. So, in conjunction with a diversity plan, making sure that, I think maybe Laura or Amy, you spoke to this, making sure that everybody has a defined career path, and that it's memorialized somewhere in writing, and that women are working with their supervisors or their mentors on that. Having formal mentor-mentee programs, and having, those of us in more senior roles now, it's almost our responsibility to give back to the more junior women. So I would say those things are really important in an organization.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I think in our organization it's probably not, it's probably much different than other organizations, in that the top 3 executives in our firm are all women. So our chief marketing officer, Rachel McCarthy, she's a woman. And then our CFO, Kristen Murkowski, and then myself, we all work together to drive this company forward. Now, certainly I can't sit here and say it's perfect and we're empowering every single person to get up every morning and to continue their career forward. But that's what we strive towards, and that's what we hope for. John Bear, who owns the organization, he is and founded the organization. He's done a really good job of empowering us as women to take the next leap in our careers and to drive this company forward. So I applaud him for doing that. And certainly now my role is to continue that empowerment with the rest of the organization, not just women, but the men that are involved with Milestone as well. So that's the hope, that we can do that, and we can inspire other organizations to have women at the top levels and to continue to promote women throughout the organizations.
Yeah, and you sparked another thought there, Amy, is that education amongst our male counterparts is just as important as empowering women, and having them understand the ways that women might approach things and how that's different, than men. it might make them look at their team differently. Especially the example that I used of, the job description, having all 9, but not the 10th one versus a guy having 1. How many stories have we heard where the woman didn't apply and the male supervisor thought they're just not interested, even though they thought, she may be more qualified. So I think, educating our male counterparts is very important as well.
Certainly. And Francesca, we actually have a question that is directed to you regarding the class action law forum. So I know I mentioned earlier that you host that annual class action law forum, and that releases an annual research report each year based on cases or whatever might be happening in the space. But as far as hosting that, is that more of, would you say, a women-driven project, or are there many women involved in getting that all together?
So I would definitely say it takes a village. It is a huge undertaking. The idea came to me and my colleague Dana Rager as we were kind of out on the conference circuit. And, this conference offers this, but that conference didn't offer that. And we really felt like financial institutions in general are thought of as vendors. And we know that we're so much more than that. So we, the whole execution, the idea of it was really sparked from just attending all these conferences. It was brought to a partner of ours at the University of San Diego School of Law, Debbie Ryder, who is in philanthropy for the law school. And then, looking at our steering committee this year, we had Aaron Bosman from Morrison and Forrester, Gail Blatt, and Ellen Gussikoff-Stewart from Robbins, Geller, Redmond, and Dowd, all really big powerhouse women. So I would leave it there, and yes, it is, but we can't do it without our male counterparts. David Casey certainly is, a huge contributor as the chair of the judges and helps bring the judges to the organization. But as far as, idea, plan, execute, I think that's mostly women, and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's so awesome. And our last question definitely could be, directed to both of you. Amy, we'll start with you. Reading this question is so interesting because, I know that, of course, we are so appreciative of our male counterparts, and everybody adds something different depending on whatever problem we're solving to work together on, or, everybody is very collaborative, I think, in both of our spaces, Francesca and Amy. But as far as mentoring, do you think that as a woman, it's beneficial to, also have some type of mentor that's a male, or do you think that that's something that, again, we were talking, sometimes it's easier women to speak to one another. What are your thoughts on having or being a woman in the financial or the legal industry with a male mentor?
I think a male mentor is really important. I think you learn a lot from all the people in your life. It doesn't have to be woman to woman or woman to man. I think you're always going to draw something out of every relationship that you have. And the deeper that you get into a relationship, especially in a business relationship, I think that you challenge yourself differently. And everyone, I think to Francesca's point earlier, everyone brings a little bit of something different to the table. Some people are ideators, some people are more tactical, some people are more strategic. So I think having that relationship and building it with the male mentors in your life is really interesting, and you can take things away from that and then have your woman to woman conversation that maybe feels a little bit more comfortable and you can be a little bit more vulnerable. But I think all mentorship is always going to do you well in your career, and is going to bring out different pieces.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, I am, again, a poster child for having male mentors. And another thing I would say to Amy's point is, now serving in that mentor role after having been a mentee for so many years of my career, I think that we learn just as much from our mentees. as they learn from us. I know that for me, it's a way to stay fresh, and oftentimes they're younger than us, and they're bringing new ideas. So I think as women, it's important for us also to have male mentees. I'll flip that. And I think that that goes to also, having them understand the difference between a woman executive and a male executive. I don't think that there should be this fine line between women having only women mentors and males only having, male mentors. I think it goes both ways, and I think the broader the experience, the better. And there is no rule that says you can only have one at a time either. You
Right.
might have a male and a female mentor and pose the same question to them and see how that might be answered differently.
Right, absolutely. And actually, one more question. So just kind of a nice way to close everything up too is, regardless of industry, whether it be financial or legal, what do you think there's one thing that women can do to lift their colleagues up?
Always be positive. Never knock another woman. Never shoot down an idea without, giving it some credence and talking through it. Never speak poorly about another woman. We've all seen that in our careers. Really, I think it comes from a lack of confidence. The woman that needs to be the queen bee, or will step on other women to get to the top. It's just not necessary. It's not kind. It's not fun. And in the long run, you get so much more out of it by lifting and empowering those around you.
I couldn't agree more. I think that is a perfect just sentiment to the whole conversation. The only thing that I would add to it is listening. I think a lot of times when we come to each other or our mentors or our colleagues or whomever in our lives, sometimes we just want someone to listen and to understand where we're coming from and just be that voice to say, it's okay and we're going to get through it, or maybe here's a solution. But most of the time it's just having that person next to you listening to what you're saying, and then you're able to take your big deep breath and move on with your day. So I would just add just being a good listener, which sometimes is harder than it seems.
Hi, I don't know. Can anybody hear me? It's Robin Griffin.
Hi, Robin. You made it.
I'm so sorry I missed this whole thing, as I've been frantically trying with technical difficulty to log in, and I was able to see all your pretty faces, but I couldn't seem to connect. So I'm sure it was a wonderful program, and I'm just dialing in. So again, I'm really sorry. I was really looking forward to participating.
Yeah, we're so happy that you could even join us at the tail end. I'm sorry you were having some tech difficulties, but Robin, is there anything that you would like to add now that we're wrapping up, just as far as?
Yeah, I mean, I obviously didn't know what everyone addressed, but obviously, it's a really important time now for women, I think both in finance and legal, to be able to, move forward things. I think we prop up on the shoulders of the previous women, and now it's our job to continue moving that forward. And I think there's been a lot of evolution and a lot moving forward, but there's also still hurdles to go beyond. And I think myself, I've known Francesca for years and all of you for years, and we've really tried to lead and be a community of women that help other women. Our bank at Huntington is very dedicated to really focusing on empowering women, and especially during this month of women in history. We really take kind of a dedicated approach with business resource groups, and a lot of focus around, I think I heard the last question around mentors and mentees and creating networks. And, it's not a zero-sum game. Women can help other women. And I think you were saying with men that men can really help charge forward the effort for women. And so, I think a lot of the same themes run both in finance and in the legal industry. But, we've had amazing women to watch and see along the way, and hope to continue to help forge those, opportunities for women going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. And thanks to everybody, Robin, Francesca, Amy, thank you for joining the panel and discussing. It's, it's been a great Women's History Month, so this is a nice way to wrap it up. And of course, if anybody listening or watching has any questions for any of the panelists, they can certainly reach out. Milestone will be happy to connect anybody to, if anyone wants to reach out to Francesca or Robin specifically, but we appreciate you joining.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.